Hello, my friend. Let's talk about the gifts of trauma today. And so, standard psychology, our standard human perspective, lost in the mire of the struggle and polarity and difficulty of being human, we judge difficult things, bad things, negative things like stress, like cyclones, like abuse, like anything that we would call trauma as a negative. It's pretty clear. On a human level, we tend to classify and judge things as either good or bad. And the good things are fun and easy and light and loving. The difficult things, like trauma, are put into that category of bad, shouldn't have happened. But that misses a broader perspective. And if we don't change that perspective, we never really heal fully out of the traumas, out of the challenges, out of the wounding, because there's still a mindset that keeps us stuck at a certain point. We hit this ceiling in our healing journey where we're still judging it as bad. That should not have happened. That shouldn't happen. And look, in a big picture of things in terms of evolution, eventually this will be a planet of light and love, and we won't experience these things. People won't do that to each other. But for now, let's see it as purposeful. We've spoken before about how growth comes out of adversity, not out of easy. And so we start to see that, there's purpose, there's meaning in the challenges that people go through. And of course, people go through unbelievably difficult things. You've probably been through some very, very difficult things, including childhood trauma, including abuse, including the negativities and things that we can be conceived into and born into. And so when we see it from this bigger perspective, when we go up to soul level and we start to consider that there's meaning for it, there's purpose in it, that there's actually growth that comes out of the challenges and the contrast and the difficulties, then we can start to consider, what gifts have come out of my trauma? If they are wrapped up in traumatic stress is really just unresolved emotion, unresolved experience. But as we clear those wrappers, knowing that there's gifts inside, what might those gifts be? There's obvious ones like, I'm stronger for that. I'm more resilient for that. The cyclone event we just went through up here, preparing for that, experiencing that. It could have been a lot worse, but it was still pretty stressful. And there's a certain resilience that's built now in the community that wasn't there before, having to go through that. And maybe there's some people stuck in a stress over that. But in the healing of that, what are we left with? Well, in terms of dealing with cyclones and major weather events, we're just a bit stronger, a bit more resilient. In terms of trauma, in terms of childhood stuff, abuse, and the really heavy-duty stuff, it might take a lot of work to unwrap these gifts, to work through the wrappers of fear and guilt and grief and anger and all the residual stuck energies that go with it. But as we work through it, what does appear, and it's important, it helps to know this in advance, that there's gifts within all this. Well, other gifts that people name are things like empathy, deep kindness and compassion for other people's suffering, a deep understanding, a deep wisdom about what other people have gone through. We don't have to go through exactly the same thing to have empathy. There's only so many colours on the palette of experience. But when we know those darker colours on the palette, like fear and terror, like rage and fury, like guilt and shame, like deep sadness, aloneness, isolation, grief. When we know those colours through direct experience, we can relate, we can empathise, we can understand those colours showing up in other people's paintings. That's not going to happen if we're just working with the lighter colours and we're not dealing with the darker ever. So empathy develops out of the suffering experiences. Strength, resilience, of course. Wisdom, understanding, maturity. What other words? Maybe there's 2 or 3 dozen words we could use. There's certainly key ones, but the main ones people report back are things like more strength, more courage, more understanding, more empathy, more compassion, more kindness, more love. And ultimately that's the key word that umbrellas all of this, isn't it? We go through experiences that aren't love, like being abused. Well, that's not love, that's being projected onto us. Or being neglected. Well, that's not love if we're being neglected. Whatever these traumatic experiences are that aren't love, what they catalyse is a conscious awareness of what is love. We know it in the negative. Psychology would call this a negative learning environment. We learn a lot in the negative. When there's an absence of love, we learn what we value, what's important to us, what we need, what do we miss out on? What do we crave for? What do we long for and not get? Well, that's really going to build our conscious awareness much more than if we've got loving comfort and attention on hand 24/7. That's all great in one way, but there isn't a lot of growth in that. So I work with a lot of amazing, brave souls who've taken on extreme negative learning environments, of neglect or abuse, whatever, and they're left with all sorts of complex post-traumatic stress issues. But on the other side of that, or through that, or beneath that, there are these amazing gifts of knowing. People know what they value, know what's important. And I see these amazing people who've translated that into becoming really loving, attentive parents, making good on their parents, becoming really empathic, supportive, kind people, really deeply strong and resilient, caring people. So the key quality, the key gift that comes out of trauma, essentially it is love. Because the experience of the lack of love really highlights our awareness of it. It really prods our consciousness into knowing, I know what was missing, I know what I want, I know what I need, I know what I like, I know how I want to be and who I want to be. So there's an interesting question for you, and that is to ponder, what are the gifts that have developed in you, not despite your experiences, but because of the challenging things, because of the traumatic experiences? What qualities, what gifts have grown and developed in you through those adversity experiences? And remember, you get to keep those qualities now forever. Those gifts belong to you now for eternity. They're part of your soul character now. And isn't that good news? We go through an experience that might drag on for a long time. It might be brief, it might be years, but it passes, it's over. But the gifts are now yours forever.